everybody, and welcome back to episode 23 of the Resurrected A Winner Is You podcast. As ever, my name is David, and I'm sitting 29 miles across from Mr. Alex Aldridge. How are you doing today, Alex?
Ahoy hoy! I'm doing alright.
Made an
Soon you'll be sitting mere centimetres away from me.
Yes, we have a sexy nerd weekend booked coming up in October. Which basically involves going to an arcade and going to a retro video game shop and probably drinking some beer
multiple times.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's going to be excellent.
I thought about the day we come home, I was like, what are we going to do on the last day before we go back to that shop again?
Where are you going?
Why not?
What? Where?
See how much money we've got left. Oh, I never told you. My dad came up big on the trains. There's the one caveat is that I cannot, and he's repeated to me multiple times, cannot miss the trains that he's booked me onto. Otherwise, I'll get charged for a full fare. But I've managed to get in up and down for free. So we have, yes. Well, it cost 50 quid, but my dad paid for it and said, "Don't worry about it." So I have hit the mother load on the trains. But yeah, so
Brewdogs are on you, mate.
Brewdogs on me. But yeah, so that's good. Means I've got more money for video games, retro video games. They've got a great. You don't use Instagram, do you? But they've got
only for tattoo stuff.
Okay, they've got a great. Well, I started following them on Instagram. They've got a great selection of PS1 games, like massive, like almost like a wall dedicated to PS1 games. The thing is, though, a lot of them I was looking and I was like, they sort of are catering. I think there's a big chunk of what they've got in that shop that are catering for a sort of arm of retro video games that I am not in the market for, and that is like.
Please tell me that's not Brian Lara cricket fans.
Oh no! If I'm going to be collected, I'll probably end up with copies of those. But it's the sealed, unused copies. I'm not up for that. Because I was looking, I was like, £70 for Resident Evil 2. I was like, nah, surely not. That is there are lots of those copies going about, and I looked and it's fat. I don't care about that. Games are for play,
That's
man.
the beauty of collecting cartridges. You know, if you're just buying cart only, that that's it. But CD games, they have to be boxed. So
yeah.
We lost him.
I was watching a dude on the net. What was he talking about? Doesn't matter what he was talking about, but he had a wall of N64 carts, and he had those stickers that you've got. You know how you put them on
the end label ones.
Yeah, and I actually was like, at some point with the end labels, like you don't want boxes because he had like a massive wall of these carts with end labels, and I was like, that looks amazing. So I was like, I'm going to have a look and see you'll need to send me a link to that place where you get those end labels actually, because I've got a couple.
It has to have
carts.
been Etsy, I think, but I will find it.
Is it? Yeah. So yeah, because that was the only other place other than you that I'd seen it, and I was like, well, if we're going to be getting, because I don't know, I'm interested to see what's there when we get there, because I want to buy a few PS1 games because that seems to be the road I'm following at the moment. But come on, I want to know if they've got those cool color carts for the NES, or the Famicom, whatever.
Yeah, I was going to say
you've got a few of those.
You can play those on the retro. By the way, for anybody listening / watching, we're talking about Saw Thumb. Is it Saw Thumb?
Yeah, let's actually give them a shout out since we've just been speaking about this.
Yeah, we're coming for you, boys.
York Retro Games. Sore Thumb Retro Games.
Yeah, we're coming for you.
Oh wait, I might have made my. Yeah,
we're back. We'll probably we'll be discussing it obviously after we get back, but we'll take photos and stuff.
Yeah, that'll be good fun.
Shit, he can't have much.
Oh yeah, good shout. Yeah, that's a great idea. Never know, if it's quiet, they might even let us record a 5 minutes hello.
Yeah, that'll be nice.
Yeah, but we'll see.
To do that.
Yeah. Why are we here today, Alex? Because it's not to play The Ascent. As we discussed before.
We tried a little bit. We tried for a few minutes.
Oh, it's not my game. It is not my game. Not a fan of that at all.
No. It was just, I don't know. It was just kind of nothing, wasn't it? There was some elements of story to it, but it was all text-based and it's really boring. And the gameplay just looked like it was never going to be any different from what we could walk through a corridor and do the two-stick shooter stuff, roll about.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you did. I super enjoyed Alienation. Like the previous games. I was expecting.
I remember you playing that. Yeah.
Yeah, I was expecting sort of a grungy, punky sort of version of that, where you just sort of run levels, but it was very linear and almost level based, and then didn't really have the game. In my opinion, didn't really have the gameplay to sort of back up it just being.
There's a lot of transitioning from area to area. It wasn't like a relentless onslaught like a game like, as you said there, like something like Smash TV or Xenocrisis, which I've been playing recently.
Yeah, I almost wanted to sort of.
They're fun because they're very arcadey, but this was like yeah.
What did you be? What did you sort of aim your gun precision, like with precision rather than just unleashing hell, which is what I like from sort of those isometric top-down games.
Graphically, I wasn't impressed considering this was developed specifically for Series X or Series consoles, whatever you want to call it.
Maybe I was wrong.
Really uninspired character models, just bland as hell.
Finally caught up with them.
The character creation was a bit boring. It just felt like something we were going to play for the sake of I'd said it and let's play it, and then we decided what's the point in that?
Yeah, exactly. We're here to play. We're not getting paid for this, so we want to play games we enjoy.
Wait.
Did we enjoy the game we played instead? Is the question we're going to answer over the next hour or so.
Yeah, which is Days Gone. I think I did enjoy it, and I do like it. And actually, like, it's weird. Like,
anyway?
the first 3/4 of that game, I had sort of a, I'm playing this because I like this sort of game, but it's not a great one of those games sort of taste in my mouth. But then by the end of it, it finishes, I feel like finishes so much stronger than the main sort of thrust of the game. So I kind of finished with a nice taste in my mouth, even though I don't think most of the game warrants that taste, if that makes sense. That was a roundabout way of saying it. Whoa! Oh, I should be using that. I bought myself one of those.
Just trying to make it look a little bit.
Yeah, I'm looking
that's the colour.
Yeah. Just a graze.
Yeah. So
hello everybody.
Yeah. I think like, I don't know, to be reductive,
I completely agree with that.
Probably a 6.5, 7 out of 10 for me, but it's still I still enjoyed
7
it.
7 out of 10 all the way.
It's one of those where the less sort of ambitious or talented review writers would be writing. For fans of the genre, it's worth checking out, but maybe not for people that are casual.
They've all been gutted. They just
casual
couldn't call it
interest.
Souls-like.
Come on.
Yeah.
I can't refer this to Dark Souls or Metroid and fucking Castlevania. What am I going to do?
Souls like Castlevania, like neither of those.
Grand Theft Auto with zombies.
That's a hell of a way to go. It's slow.
And like,
I suppose you know all about that.
Yeah.
Still breathing when we found it, you piece of shit.
Yeah, I agree with you. There are some moments. Well, the game's way longer than it needs to be. Like far too long.
Oh, I'd say at least like nearly 50% longer than it needs to be.
Yeah, it's 20, 25 hours too long.
For too long. Leon.
For moments that aren't necessarily worth doing from a character development perspective. There are some characters in this game that seem to just be there for the sake of, I don't know, trying to ground things maybe a little bit, but for example, Ricky.
Here, take it.
Like, she's a sympathetic character. She's obviously like a female replacement in his life.
Cemetery.
She's a reason for him to let himself go and reveal things about himself. But at the same time, she doesn't really serve much of a purpose in the overall narrative until the very end, which is really centered around Boozer instead of her anyway. But a lot of her stuff, Tucker, the whole Lisa thing, like some of that stuff just doesn't need to be there, other than just kind of like it's a task for you to do.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like Ricky exists. I feel like Ricky exists to say light a candle, and then that's really our entire character arc.
Yeah.
Started.
By the way, for those of you viewing this episode, I've gone for the Boozer look today, and Dave has gone for the Deacon look.
We should have got a marker pen out and drawn some patterns on your head.
Yeah.
We don't want to leave anyone to the
Some
freaks.
sort of, I swear there's a swastika. Someone's put a swastika in there for a lol at some point, and we've never noticed it. But
No, it's
as
not been
bikers,
cancelled yet, so...
I mean, we're going to lose all our biker listeners at this point, but I usually associate bikers with being Nazis. Don't know why. I blame Louis Theroux, I think, for that.
Yeah.
Undercover
Hey, hold up.
exposés.
I want to search
His-
this
his
camp.
swastika.
He's never been undercover.
This crash.
Yeah,
He's very much
absolutely
over the
nothing
cover as
undercover.
some
I got a use for you.
unthreatening, just bland BBC presenter who doesn't
I think he
get beaten
looks
up by
like...
people for some reason.
Have you ever seen a picture of Joel, my friend? That's what Louis Theroux looks like.
Yeah.
Joel. Yeah.
No, I just gotta put them together and...
My wife loves Louis Theroux. I actually quite like him as well, but that's a massive
Yeah.
tangent.
That ought to do it.
He's the Columbo of documentaries. He tries to act like a complete nonce, like nincompoop. That's the word that I'm trying to think of. But
Yeah.
actually, he's trying to be a bit of a sneak.
He's a master manipulator, but yeah,
Lot
just
of
in the
it's pissing
guise
down
of
rain.
just a really vanilla human being.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, do you think you should probably not be Nazis? And but yeah, what carried us through Days Gone? The gameplay is
The loop,
actually
yeah,
quite
the-
fun.
Yeah, the gameplay loop is really
if there's
fun.
anything we can salvage on Leon's bike.
It's quite basic, I guess, as well.
It is basic, but it's done well, right? I feel like this. I mean, it feels like sometimes you've got basically a cheat code on the go because you've got the focus mode to do your slow mo shooting.
yeah.
But
Shout
that's
out my
still
damn
good.
fuel pump.
I liked it all
Yeah.
the time, and the shooting felt good. The bike is fun to drive.
It is, yeah.
let's just go back to
I think I
Iron
said this to you before,
We'll
and
head out
like
in the
when we
morning,
started
find
playing
some
them,
parts,
it
and come
still
back and
rings
get your
true.
bike.
Like the bike is fun to drive, and it's great fun, sort of like jumping it off of things and like trying to like drift around corners. But
So you break it.
I'm struggling. You're on a motorbike, and I'm struggling to think of another game that does such a bad job of
Crazy
giving the
Willie's isn't
player
far
a
from
sense
here.
of speed
Let's
as they're
just head
moving
over
throughout
there.
the level. Like you
What are
feel
you
like you're going,
thinking?
even when your
We're
bike's
going
fully
out hunting
upgraded,
tonight
you feel
anyway.
slow.
I feel as well that there are certain
Crazy Willie's
moments
is
in the
as good a
game
place as any.
where the game has decided
Okay.
that you cannot drive fast. It wants you to drive at a certain speed, and it's
Yeah.
not told you that this is happening, but it just kind of, if something feels wrong, like
Hey,
even
yeah.
when you do the
did
nitrous, you're
Leon
not
give
going
you?
fast enough, and I think it's
Map
just
of
it's
some
trying to get some
kind.
dialogue in before you get
Once
to
we
where
get
you
my
need to
bike
go.
back,
I
let's
think
head up
that,
to
yeah, I think
cemetery,
they've been
look
playtesting
around.
and realised that people
Yeah.
can get to the end before
Okay.
the dialogue's finished. It's like, oh well, let's just make him go slower.
Yeah, they've given you basically like an all-terrain vehicle for a reason.
tomorrow,
So people
the
are like
drugs,
obviously
take
just
him to
cutting out their
Tucker,
stupid
collect all
sat nav,
Leon's
like
bounty.
go up here and
Then I
come
say
back
we
round the
head
loop.
north.
No, I'm going to just cut across the
You
grass.
think
I'm on a
shit's any
motorbike.
different up
So they've
north?
obviously
Yeah, going
realised
straight
that
in a
people
straight
are doing
line.
that.
think it'd do us good. Get the
Yeah,
hell
and
away
Crap
from
myself into a
what-
tree and break it.
The rate in which your bike runs out of fuel in sort of the first 20% of the game is egregious. Like that's too much. Like you can't get anywhere without needing to refuel.
Hold on, something's
Did you
blocking
mind
the
that,
road.
or did you sort of
Careful.
take that in your?
Saw a setup like
So,
this a couple days ago. A
First of all,
bunch
I
of
should say that
rippers
for
blocked
some,
the road
right,
with an
I've
old
got some
truck.
Come on, help me move
fake
it.
iPod headphones here. Something about when I try and push them back in my ears again, there's some setting on these that will open iTunes on my laptop and play some music. I don't know why. I've done it twice now. It's just open iTunes and just like blaring pop punk down my ears. So I don't know what the fuck's going on there. Sorry. So what did you say? What did you say?
The rate in which you run out of fuel for like the first 20%. Egregious. Like it's too much.
It is too much. I mean, I think I ran out of fuel maybe once, but it was too much of a consideration for me anyway. So felt like I had to plan every single journey around the fact that I had to stop at a fuel station or somewhere like a Nero camp that always had. I think once you kind of understand where the fuel is, it doesn't change and it's always back. It just sort of resets every time. So every single Nero outpost has fuel because you have to put it in the generator. So I'd always make sure I was going that way, or I'd fast travel somewhere near a fuel station so I could get halfway to the destination, fuel up, and then carry it. So it never caused me an issue in terms of I ran out and I was fucked, but yeah, I had to think about it far too much to make the game fun and manageable outside of just being a chore for the early parts of it. Once you get the massive tank, you can probably fast travel multiple times. And
Yeah,
still
which
not have to worry
oddly
about it.
sort of Yeah, that oddly sort of went the other way for me though. When I got the massive fuel tank, I ended up just fast traveling everywhere because I'd also played the game for like 40 hours to that point, and because of that, I felt like I went from having far too many resources that
coming up on the old Nero checkpoint.
Enough, and I think it was because I was fast traveling and not searching around for fuel.
Yeah, maybe.
Is my theory, because I at some point I just started like Molotovs just became like gold dust, and for the first third of the game, 2/3 even, I just had them coming out my backside. Whereas that latter half of the game, they were a real commodity.
Yeah, the fact that it never, ever, ever lets you buy them is not cool.
That was driving me round the bend. That it didn't let you buy. It let you buy grenades.
Looks like that
and it'll let you buy
checkpoint
flash.
had 'em
Did you ever
backed up
use
pretty
flashbangs tactically? Like, I think I used them maybe once to see what it did. Didn't realise what it did, and then never used it again.
Look at him.
Well, I probably didn't realise that flashbangs are actually amazing.
He's thinking, hey, Mr. Fig, can we
Oh, are they?
sit here and
They
wait
will
till the
stop
goddamn
an
horde
entire
comes through and
horde
just
dead
kills
in their
us all?
tracks,
Oh,
rubbing their
really?
eyes.
Oh,
Yeah.
I should
Like
have
this.
used it. Yeah, I should have used it more. And I think I maybe used one in the entire game, and that was by accident, and I never really quite realised what it... Never really quite realised? I don't know if that's good sense or not. Realised what it did. So I just never sort of went back to it.
I can't even remember when you unlock it. Like, it doesn't get an intro of any kind. It's not like you've unlocked the flashbangs. It must have said that at some point, but I just kind of did. I
Has to have done.
When have I used one of these to get it? Like, because you end up with a massive amount of stuff that you can craft, like proximity mines and remote mines and all this kind of shit. Like, I barely ever used any of that.
Smell that?
I liked the proximity mines because I used them for...
I like the attractor bomb. That was amazing.
Oh yeah, that was hands down the best thing
on the way back. Leave it
in the game, the attractor
Yeah.
bomb. But yeah, the proximity mines, I used to lay, if it was like, so like with that
someone's home.
massive horde in the game that had the it was at the wood sawmill.
Yeah.
I set myself like a route to run away. So I would lay a tractor bomb. I would lay proximity bomb and then go and annoy them, shoot them until I was starting to get overwhelmed, and then run back the route I came and make bombs on the way. That would take out another lot of them. Usually it let you get away to sort of re-ammo or sort of again, go back again.
So, when you've laid one of those, do you set them off? Do you have to run around them?
No, I just
run straight over it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the problem is you have to make sure that you're far enough away because it's got quite a blast radius. So if you've got zombies on your tail, quite often I blew myself up as well.
Yeah.
So that was a...
Which is what I did because I
a
used them
risk.
as fucking reactionary measures. So therefore I'm already running and I'm like turning around and slowly putting one on the floor and then just getting absolutely caned. So that's why I never used them properly. I was not as much of a planner as you because I remember until I don't even know what it must have been. I must have then pumped a load of stuff into my focus meter so that I could basically shoot several rows of horde in slow-mo and then carry on running. But until then, I just couldn't do a horde. Like, I was so bad at it. And you were telling me all these tactics that you used. You'd obviously thought about this, whereas I was still just trying to play it like it was a normal shooter. And I was really struggling to get through them. But you had all these tactics to deal with it. So I think you played the game in a much more considered way than I did.
Maybe, but also you had to break it to me that focus was a thing. Because I remember I played like... honestly, probably about 15 hours without even going near focus. And you were like, oh yeah, it's a game changer. I was like, and then when I eventually used the skill point to get it, I was like, oh my god, it's amazing. Do you know one thing I think they didn't do enough is I find is my favourite thing about that sawmill area, and maybe it's there and I just didn't see it, but that was really the only time I can think of seeing. Like, you know how you could run through the sawmill and cut wood to fall down and slow them down and funnel the enemies. That didn't really happen
after I'd
very
already
often.
done it.
I got it. Just keep your head
I think I found it out because I was trying to loot afterwards, and then I crawled under this gap, and then stuff fell down behind me. I was like, oh yeah, that'd have been cool. Oh well.
Oh, see, I found it by accident as well, but I was running away and I was running between them, and I just saw like I was almost getting overwhelmed, and I just saw an opportunity to press square, and I did. And then I turned around, and it really slowed them all down and started funneling them through a really small gap, so you could just sort of unleash on them. And that, yeah, and they never did enough of that. And I actually, did you find as well, like when you were going back at the end of the game or towards the end of the game clearing up horde nests. They were a lot of them were quite small. It was rare to. I found maybe 3 or 4 big ones. The rest were quite little.
I felt disappointed in myself when I was actually clearing them up with a purpose, sort of thinking, oh, well, why did I find this hard? Especially the ones when they're in a cave. It's like, well, I'm going to throw in a tractor bomb to get some of them to come out of the cave. Then I'm going to give them a wall of napalm bombs to run through, which most of them will be dead in. By the time you actually have to start running away, your bar of the horde level has gone down to about an 1/8, and you can just pick them off. So I thought to myself, how do I ever struggle with these? But I love the hordes. I mean, we've said this off air.
I did.
Easily the best part of the game. Like, I would grind through hordes forever because they're so fun.
Yeah, they are.
Even
fun.
if the AI is dog shit, it doesn't matter.
Oh, did you ever lose freakers and you couldn't finish a horde because you couldn't find one?
Yes.
Heard enough out of you.
All too often. Yeah, and the one that got like stuck under a bridge or something, or it was just like wandering about in amongst other freakers. I found sometimes.
Yeah. Or then you've broken off so far away to look for it, you then just get like a couple of stragglers, and you start killing them, and they were nothing to do with it, and you're just wasting ammo. Yeah. I mean, I think our biggest gripe with the game is the fact that it's so broken even now. Like it's.
I think so, because
shoddily put together at times.
My two that's exactly it. My 2 gripes with the game are I don't think the story's of even vaguely good quality, and
not
also
until
the game is
hour.
But the game, and that's kind of what I'm getting at. In that, like, it's the quality of the story is poor and the bugs are terrible in some cases, like almost game breaking. But the story does redeem itself.
It did break your game for a bit, didn't it?
Yeah, and the story sort of, it redeems itself, and it's kind of schlocky in a B-movie sort of entertaining way, I found. Like,
at times.
Boozer's an idiot, but I end up quite liking him.
I said that to you, didn't I? I shouldn't like this guy. He should be a scumbag piece of shit, but he's actually somehow got heart, even though he's a big, mean biker head tattoo man.
Just use the last one.
Which I guess, don't judge a book by its cover or whatever.
Yeah.
Schizo was like, I mean, how, like, cardboard cut out, needlessly bad guy for being a bad guy was Schizo. But you can't help but hate him.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And there's so many like archetypes in there of characters in there. There's like Iron Mike, like the guy who's trying to do the right thing all the time. He's sturdy and he's tough, but he's fair and all this kind of stuff. And then you've got Ricky, the kind of like, the girl next door, and oh Jesus.
Yeah.
The worst part about the story was the fucking, as I said to you, like the Anakin Skywalker Padme romance shit between Deacon and Sarah when the flashbacks were going on. You're slowly walking to pick flowers, and all the dialogue was not what normal people say to each other. Yeah, the wedding. Yeah.
Vomit. Oh my
you're gonna ride me as hard as you ride your bike. You're a badass.
Let's just divorce. Let's divorce.
Sarah, the super like prim and proper scientist girl, clearly from a nice upbringing, but she's got some tats, so therefore she's bad enough to marry a biker.
Maybe I inferred this incorrectly, but did you get the impression that she was quite embarrassed
I've been
about
thinking
her
about what you
relationship
said about
with her
riding north.
sort of normal side?
Just saying.
She wouldn't let him see her parents, right?
Clear your head.
Yeah, and
Good morning. Let's turn in the
it's like,
bounties.
you're gonna marry this man,
We'll hit
and
the road.
they've never met
Hell
your
yeah,
parents,
brother.
and you don't
Now
seem
you're
to want
talking.
them to meet your parents. Like,
There's almost like it's like a dichotomy of intent there, wasn't it? It's like, I don't care what people think of you, but I'm not going to introduce you to them because what do they think of you? But I don't care about that.
yeah.
I'm going to marry you anyway.
Shit.
You stick it to daddy, Sarah. Go on.
Did you like? She came round again. She's another one that came round towards the end, but like when you
We had this discussion about when they meet her. Yeah.
You find out she's alive, and like, she just doesn't seem to want to be around you. It seems to be like she's not happy that you've come back. She's not happy you're alive. She's just sort of, oh no.
Shit.
So I was reading when I was reading through the stuff for the notes for
They
this.
already know it's a bad idea.
Deacon,
he reveals his thoughts a lot. When you go back and check the progress of your missions afterwards, it's sort of like you almost get an inner monologue of Deacon.
Shit.
And he was saying stuff like she blanked him in front of the Colonel, and he said that apparently the Colonel has a rule about fraternization in his militia. So Deacon sort of reconciles it with himself that, okay, I understand if she says that she's my wife, he won't let me go do runs for her, and I won't be allowed anywhere near her because he's got these rules. So I understand why she.
Is that why?
There's a lot of
I was like, why just tell her that you're married?
Go on.
Like,
Get out of here.
She never says that to Deacon either. Like, Deacon just assumes that's what she's doing. But then there are some bits where he says like, oh, she's really cold with me, and every time he kind of has a go at her, he actually writes in his monologues things like, oh, I had a go at her, I'm getting stressed out, I don't know why I did this to her, I need to remember what's going, like, remember that I love her and all this kind of stuff, and I don't know why I did this, I don't know what's happening to me, I'm going to lose her again if I carry on getting angry with her. But you and I were getting super angry with the fact that it's just like a really anticlimactic moment. Like, none of it paid off. You've spent 40 hours looking for somebody you thought was dead, and then you're just going to go out and get some fucking silica for her or whatever it was. So it's like, leave with Deacon, you stupid twat.
Yeah.
Very weird.
None of it makes any sense, I think, with that, until she sort of...
I just found her annoying. I wasn't happy she was there. I found him annoying too. We both found him very annoying.
Yeah, he's just like, in some cases, like I'm sure we'll get to it, but like some of the things he's done are so abhorrent that I feel like he's an almost irredeemable character. But on the other hand of it, he's such a wet blanket when it comes to Sarah. I'm just like, grow up here and have a conversation with her. And then Sarah's just like seems embarrassed by him, and then it just sort of flips on a dime because they go and shoot some people together. I think is that was that what changes it? Am I misremembering that?
They go on that run together, and then they sort of kind of open up with each other, don't they? A bit after that, but it's never really properly. It's almost like they've tried to design him like Nathan Drake, but he has none of the charm. He's just like a quippy, sarcastic, like mopey twat who just has an issue with anyone asking him to do anything, and he's always just like. The face capture was really good, and I do think he acted it okay. I think all the acting was pretty good.
Oh yeah,
I think to have this kind of face of just like
script design. I think it's completely like script design. The fact that he's an idiot, I wouldn't blame the voice actor for that at all. Like even like when you're doing the terrible Nero missions where you've got to be stealthy and creep around and hear information. He is getting like knowledge bombs dropped. He should be like, oh my god, what is happening here? This is I'm gobsmacked. Except he's just sort of like bumbling on, not really taking on the information that he's being told, which is doubly
just
annoying.
Like brushes it off like fucking hell, they're revolving, are they? Oh, gee, that's all I need.
It's doubly annoying because they also make out that he's not the badass idiot meathead that he presents himself as. They try and give him a backstory that he's a soldier that just is, I don't know, like disillusioned with life and found home in the motorcycle gang. But actually, he is a complete idiot because he's just not engaging with the things that are right in front of his face.
Of course he's a soldier, by the way.
Yeah, well, he would have to be.
How else was he going to be a one-man army against the fucking hundreds of thousands of zombies?
Sorry, American listeners, but that's exactly how you get Americans to like a character. You make him a soldier.
Yeah.
So
he's a badass biker, but also he used to be a troop, so therefore he's good.
Yeah, it's just lazy. It's lazy writing. Like make your character rounded and likable, not just he's a soldier, so you have to like him.
Yeah, the only time I found him likable was, well, I was about to say with how much he sort of cared for his friendship with Boozer, but a lot of the time he was just getting angry with Boozer. It's really funny, like every time somebody called him from a camp, he was just like, oh, yeah, fine, yeah, I'll come in. I like Boozer's. He just felt like he shouted a lot. Maybe it's because he's supposed to be on a bike and therefore he has to shout. It just felt like he was shouting at everyone. Even when he was saying nice things, he's still kind of shouting it.
Shit.
His weird rage attacks after speaking to Copeland, I thought were funny.
Yeah.
He's got so wound up about this terrible radio station. Yeah. I don't know why he was doing runs for him.
No. And Tucker's not very nice either. She's basically like a slave owner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just some like, oh, a friendly old lady, but she's actually just got a slave camp.
Did you have anywhere that you always... Did you spread, when you were meeting survivors out in the wild, did you spread where you were sending them back?
Well, yeah, so I set... Because there's a moment in the game where you can pick, right? You can pick which one... Like, the first time you can pick which camp you send a survivor to. It kind of, I think it kind of tells you, like... If you send them to Copeland's camp, he's going to get you better bike stuff. If you send them to Tucker's camp, he's going to get you better weapon stuff. So I think I kept it with... I did all my weapons shopping at Tucker's place, and I did all my bike shopping at the other place, because Manny had more stuff. So then it was just kind of like what I was getting closest to in terms of the leveling up the trust is where I sent them at the time, I think. But I didn't do it out of any like moral obligation or sort of, you know, the way that I found to like certain characters. It was just based on my needs. Which, I mean, it's a survival game. I guess that's the way it should be done.
Yeah, and I guess it fits with the character before sort of Deacon does his redemption arc. But like, yeah, I also find that I found guns I liked and I rarely changed them. So I never had much need.
one gun for a long time.
Yeah, the only time I was really spending money was on my bike, and that was everything else was fine. I just sort of made sure. I had
you'd end up with
ammo
like tens of thousands of credits by the end because you just weren't buying
yourself.
anything but fuel or repairing your bike.
Which is doubly annoying. Why you can't buy supplies, you can't buy rags, you can't buy bottles. Like, just let me buy that stuff.
Yeah, and the fact that getting to level 3 trust with the camps takes ages.
Boozer, you there?
And they've got all the best
long,
guns
isn't
hidden
it?
behind level 3, but it takes like tens of hours to get that far. So there really isn't any other gun you can get hold of. It's just, I've got the little stubby and some decent machine gun, and that was my gun for about 30 hours of the game until I managed to unlock a better one.
Boozman?
Did you
Never used the crossbow.
No, and I feel like the game wanted, like I think I said this to you already. I feel like the game wanted us to use the crossbow because I'm trying to think of other examples, but it's one of the few weapons, if maybe the only specific weapon that has its own sort of upgrade path in the upgrade.
Yeah, skill points for it. Yeah, nothing else has that. Go on and tell us about the stuff that was cut, because you mentioned there were things cut to do with eating and hunger.
Oh, I don't know this for sure. I suspected. Yeah, I was playing the game and like you know how it's got the Red Dead Redemption 2 skinning your animals mechanic. Yeah, where you can like cut and gather meat and things like that. There was a lot of it that ended up. There's a lot of not a significant amount, but there's a decent variety of animals that you get different meat from. And you can, like, on all your flower collection and stuff, there was a lot of it that didn't have any use that I could see.
Yeah.
And I just wondered, and I felt like I sometimes get a feeling with this, like Halo 5 another game I got this feeling with, but like because this game went through development hell, or it appears to have, because it was delayed. And
still broken.
It's still broken. I wonder if there was like a sort of health, like eating, drinking, cooking mechanics that had been taken out of the game, because just to have all that variety and like mushrooms and animal meat for the only purpose of that to be go and stick it into the kitchen for some money.
Not a lot of money either.
Yeah, it felt like there was something that had been cut there. I think is a feeling I got with it.
Fucking rippers.
And it feels like it's one of those weird things, isn't it, where like it's a mechanic that will probably be annoying, but you're also trying to portray this game's character as a man who goes through day and night cycles, hunting and raiding and killing zombies, but the man never shits or eats or pisses or drinks. So he sleeps for about 3 hours at a time when you decide to work daytime. But yeah, and the fact that we were saying as well, you've got like the skill point tree bits where you can like get double the meat. But it's kind of, I get
exactly
like $3 in the credits for it. Like, what's the point?
Yeah, what's the point?
If I ever wanted to build the trust up, I'd go do a horde, grab about 500 ears, and then spend that at the bounty place, and then that's how you get your trust levels up quickly. But the meat stuff and the flowers, kind of like. I mean, I think the flowers were for crafting as well. I remember
a lot of the flowers,
mushrooms to make something. But
yeah,
I think a lot of it was to do with the crossbow.
For sure. Oh, maybe that's also why. Maybe that's part of it. Yeah. I just never sort of did any crossbow crafting, so I never had any need for those.
I think that's how you did like the poisoned bow, the poisoned darts or whatever it was. Stuff like that we just didn't engage with. I think is why you needed all the little tree saplings and all the whatever plants and shit. I don't know.
Yeah. Like I say, I don't know for sure. I just got the impression that there was something there that wasn't quite finished. Yeah. What did you? I don't know what you want to move on to next, Alex.
I can't think if we've got anything else major stuff that we were going to talk about in terms of the overall part of the game. Like we said, we enjoyed the way that it played, even if it was, quite repetitive at times. A lot of the missions are go to a camp and kill the people there. But I actually found I think the AI there was pretty bad in terms of human AI. They usually would just kind of go to the wrong part of cover and just kind of sit on the side of it. By the time you've got enough focus, you can headshot everybody with a sniper rifle before you even have to walk in, which was quite fun.
The human enemies
thing from Far Cry where you can tag people that you've looked in your binoculars. Did you do a lot of that?
I did, yeah, and I found clearing camps and things a lot of fun, but it was never. I never felt overly taxed. It was just something you could easily do.
Good melee as well. Good melee. Good gore.
Yes.
That's a thing that needs to be complimented. The gore in this. Although one time I actually managed to cut a zombie's head off with a melee attack, but he still had a head on when he died.
Nice.
But a head rolled next to him as well. Two-headed zombie.
Did you see any?
My God, there were so many things broken.
Yeah, and I often seen deer stuck in walls, and
I didn't see any animals getting in the way.
Yeah, like quite often I'd be in the middle of a bit of a freaker melee, and then I'd be walking back, and there'd just be a deer inside a rock running full sprint. So its head was just sort of popping out the top of it. I was like, oh, this game.
Jesus, I never had the bits that you had where there was no floor or ceiling or whatever it was.
Oh yeah, I think I've kept those pictures, so I'll put some of them on Twitter.
Yeah.
Because like the inside of Iron Mike's house for most of the game, when I was playing, didn't have any floors or furniture or anything inside it. It was just like they just sort of floated around, and it wasn't until like really late on that I actually saw what the inside of the house looked like. That's
because you were watching me.
Yeah.
I remember you were watching me like, oh, that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
Remember I sent you that video as well of those two zombies hanging from that telephone mast, but the rope noose was about 3 feet above their head.
Yeah.
They were just sort of spinning around underneath it.
Oh, that you've clicked loose another. That's another thing that I wondered if something was pulled out of the game. Climbing those towers. What was the point in any of the tower climbing? I feel like. Do you
Other
think
than ringing Boozer?
Yeah. I wonder if there was like because there was a few of them. I wondered if they replaced that with the map in the underground bunkers. If it was going to be like an Assassin's Creed Eagle Vision
on the maps, though.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Because every time I was for the first part of the game, for the first 4 or 5 of those, I was like, "He's looking at a map, but what's it a map of? Did I get a map? Well, I don't understand." Yeah. And then obviously you realise that there's probably like a Nero checkpoint or something nearby that they've marked, and you've now got that on your map. But he didn't seem to make that very obvious that that's what I was unlocking there. He just wanted to find a bunker all the time.
Yeah, totally. That's another bit of the game I think was changed or cut just to make the game a bit more streamlined. Can we maybe also introduce something that lets Deacon get down ladders a bit quicker? Because, oh my goodness.
Fuck me. Yeah. And his little hand animation was really weird. I found that, like, I was obsessed with how much he was, like, spreading his fingers to grab on the ladder as he was climbing it down. Some parts of it were quite nicely sort of user-friendly, and I think other parts weren't. Like, I did like the fact that when you found a bunker or something like that where you had a gun locker, you could just fill your gun up from the nearest camp. Because I think ammo was the thing I ran out of the most, certainly in the early game.
Yeah.
You have to then swap to all the shite weapons that all the enemy human characters are carrying about.
Yeah.
I remember for the first 10 hours or so, I was basically never having any ammo ever for anything, and I was losing fights because I was sort of scrambling around picking up a gun that's got 4 bullets in it and then running around for another one. But then obviously later on, when you've got massive guns and you've got extended mags and all this kind of shit, you've got loads of focus, you're basically one-shotting everybody and just running around like a total god.
Yeah. Oh, it's I don't think I wish they had brought out some more like horde challenges or DLC or just like more things to try and take on. I think even like a multiplayer horde, like where you had to like work together and take on a massive horde, just and like set up your sort of plan of attack and execute on it. That could have been really, really good.
Yeah, because not enough of the hordes were really set up to do that, were they? Although it's really fun, a lot of them, as we were saying, are just in a cave, whereas the sawmill's kind of almost got like a sort of a mousetrap kind of route you can take, where you've got so many things to blow up or trap them with. Yeah.
I wonder if that was
actually like that.
Yeah, I think like I say, I think I can think of maybe 3 large hordes, really large, like intimidatingly sized hordes that we took on, and that was it. The rest were all just sort of run around and use up mags. Yeah,
which is slightly disappointing because being overwhelmed by a horde and having to kind of think on the fly or panic and run around, like basically, sometimes I had to do like a whole loop around wherever it was to make them sort of give up on me, so I could run and find like a back of a cop car and get the boot open and get some more ammo and then go back for more. Was really exhilarating stuff. I feel like they probably, maybe some of the missions, like especially the slower ones, like the ones where you're in the mine with Schizo, or you're just sort of driving somewhere to look at something. All those bullshit missions that we had, you know, the ones where like we were talking about it, where you go to see Lisa on the farm and you're like, "How are you?" She's like, "Don't talk to me," and then it ends. Or you say, "How my god, Boozer on the farm," and he's like, "Yeah, I'm having the time of my life. All right, bye."
Oh my goodness!
Those could have been replaced by forcing you. Yeah, it just that was a sentence. That was it.
Yeah.
But if they'd have forced you to do more of the hordes, I feel like the game would have kept itself more interesting to grind through in those earlier parts, because you only really have to do a horde for the sawmill. That's it. Yeah, everything else is do the nests, but they're side missions too. But if they'd make
I enjoyed the nests.
More hordes, that'd have been great.
Nests were good fun.
Yeah, not the crow nests, but the other nests I enjoyed.
Oh, the crows were I could have done with them not being in the game. I do not like them.
Well, they were broken most of the time, as we said. Like the fact that half the time they don't even attack you. They sometimes randomly attack you, or sometimes they completely ignore you. And then the mission where you have to go into the marsh where there's supposed to be crow's nests, but I'd already gone and done them because of my completionist attitude. And then Deacon's still acting as if they're all there. He's like, "Shit, crows, better burn the nests." Yeah. And there are no nests or crows. Very strange. Oh, I remember Deacon shouting as well. Like every time you have a fight with people, he just starts shouting psycho shit. Like, "Oh yeah, you want to rest in peace, do you, you fucking prick? We'll fucking have a shootout." Yeah, that was so funny. That's the only time he ever seemed like a bit of a badass, but more of just like a psycho than anything else.
Yeah.
I was a camp full of rapists and murderers. I can't let any of them leave alive. What does that make you?
Sorry? Yeah.
Yeah. Not taking the diplomatic route. Here are you. They're murderers, so you're going to murder them all. Gotcha. And don't make me hunt animals. I mean, that is survival 101. But I did not like that mission where you got to kill deers. I just felt so sorry for the poor bastards.
Yeah.
I can understand my wife's a vegetarian sometimes playing shit like that.
It was so pointless as well. It wasn't even like it was like, "Oh, I'm going to have to do this in the game." It's like you can just not do it. The only time I killed animals was when they attacked me, and that was it.
Yeah. And most of the time they're zombified, which is fine. Speaking of zombified things that you have to kill, fucking children.
Yeah. Oh, we spoke about this. Absolutely stunned that that's in this game. The newts.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, like actual kids, and you're just going around with a baseball bat.
You can kill the shit out of them.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And they don't even like. I felt like for a lot of the game they were sort of avoiding the fact that they were children and just sort of called them newts, gave them like different names. But they actually go into it with Sarah later on in the game. Like she basically just like admits that they're kids, and you're just going around smashing them in and making it even worse. She's like,
"When don't you?
You try and save one to bring it back to being a kid," and like Deacon's like, "Oh, I've just been smashing them in." I'm like, whoa, that is dark. That got dark really quick there.
Yeah, there was a moment where
did they ever feel dangerous to you?
No.
No.
It's almost like, don't go near them. They won't attack you unless you go near them. But there was a moment where, like, somehow my the power of my guns in focus, started to make it so that the game was... anything I shot, certainly newts, were flying into the air after I'd shot them.
Yes!
They weren't falling over, but like I'd be walking up to newts and shooting them. They'd be like fucking pinging off into the ether. Like, what in the fuck is going on? Like, they're just ragdolling into the next fucking state. So funny. And like you say, they're just poor little children turned into zombies, and I'm fucking absolutely ruining them. But they're always just kind of chilling out on a roof, and they would never jump off after me. I'd shoot the first couple. They'd all just kind of stay on the roof, just pick them off.
Exactly. When you first meet them, I think there's a little throwaway line. It's like, oh, they're fine on their own, but they can be quite dangerous.
It's in that petrol station, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and then when you get stuck in with them, I don't think I shot my gun once, and when you get stuck in that newt nest, I just ran around my melee, just smacking them all in. They just weren't a factor ever. Like, I don't know if they just needed to have more of them or what. Yeah, just absolutely smashing their brains.
Yeah, they definitely need to be more of them. They needed to be more reactive, because it felt like they were going to be one of these sort of special infected. They kind of lazily chuck them in later on in the game, where you've got like the screamer and the big bastards who you can eventually end up one-shotting with a sniper rifle. Once you get the BFG sniper rifle, you just headshot them and they die. What a gun that is. It's effectively like a giant long-range shotgun.
The snipers are really fun to use. Really, really fun to use.
Yeah, they were excellent. And I love the fact that you get a Tommy gun. You feel like a fucking gangster. Like, come on, chair. And a little mini shotgun sidearm, although not necessarily as good as the little mini Uzi. Yeah, I was big on the little stubby for a long time.
The stubby's good when you're fighting against humans, I think I found.
That was fun as well. Like when they start trying to rush you and you're just shotgunning them one by one. I remember one of the camps, I think it's one of the militia camps, I got it to level 3. And they had like a pistol there that had really high stopping power. I was like, okay, finally I'm going to change back to a pistol for a sidearm. It was terrible. I kept trying to take on hordes with it, and it wasn't one-shotting them. I was like, I'm just going to go back and get the Uzi. Yeah. It's basically 2 automatic weapons is the only way to go, plus a sniper.
I tried. Did you ever try using that massive minigun thing? What do you call it? It was almost like I don't know what you call them. Those things with like the massive clips.
Oh. Yeah, so instead of a sniper or a crossbow, you can have like a light machine gun, a mag thing. Yeah,
I tried.
I only did it once when I accidentally picked one up, I think.
Oh, did you? Oh, I was like, oh, this. When I was clearing out the hordes, I was like, oh, this will be good for clearing out hordes. I'll just be able to sit at like the cave entrance and just unload. Didn't kill it. It wasn't powerful enough. Didn't kill them quick enough. So I ended up just going back. I was like, I'm actually better with a sniper rifle in focus than I am with this. So I just dumped it and went back.
Yeah. Because once you get the power up where you can shoot through people, I find that I was just trying to get high ground, look down at a horde and just pumping bullets into them.
Yeah.
You didn't even have to really line them up. You'd take about 2 or 3 of them out with every shot. That was great. But yeah, those big bastards have the mag guns, don't they? Like the ones who've got like all the sort of like pseudo armor on that they've kind of built up themselves. They kind of walk about. Never seem to get a flamethrower though. You can't pick that up, can you? Off the flamethrower dudes.
I never got to. Not that I saw.
Usually because they blow up when you kill them. To be fair.
Yeah.
Because if you shoot them
probably
in the pack that's on their back, it's not really.
I wonder if that's just another thing.
Use that.
I wonder if that's another thing they just pulled out, because like a flamethrower within a crowd of freakers would be quite fun if you could like, I don't know, like putting a tractor down, just absolutely just burn them all. It would be so good. So satisfying, but not to be. Did you do any of the challenges after the game?
No. Did you?
I messed about with the bike ones. I couldn't be bothered with any of the other ones just to see what they were like, but they weren't really very fun, so I stopped quite quickly. Seemed to want you to grind down. You could like level up your bike. You could level up you could change your character. Like you could be Ricky or Boozer and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's cool. They obviously want you to like rerun it and give you scores and stuff and play against your mates. But I was like, it's not fun enough, and I'm not really getting anything by grinding this, so I just stopped.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't want to go back to play more of the game with even less substance in the game itself after I've done 60 odd hours of it. I was ready for it to end. We were ready for it to end for a long time.
For sure, definitely ready for it to be over. Well, have we talked much about the story? Where do you want to go next?
No, let's go. Should we go into that? Do you want to go through because the story is basically cut up into. It's very much like Ghost of Tsushima, where you've got an ongoing story, or lots of ongoing stories that have their own little branches, but they're sort of tied to different characters around the map. So this one will but there was no way to sort of activate these stories. It just decided upon which story you're doing next. There was no agency other than it maybe gave you 2 or 3 stories at once. But other than that, it's just kind of like, oh, fucking hell, we haven't even talked about that. The fact that you'd be in a camp, you'd have run out of stories, and as soon as you drive away from the camp calls you, and you've got to go fucking back to the camp again. So I just took to sitting outside the camp on my bike for 5 minutes and just wait for someone to call, because I'm not driving away and coming back again.
No, because you use
the way that they deliver missions is shite.
Oh, real bad.
Yeah, exactly.
Real bad. That's a great point. Fantastic point. Oh, it's so annoying. Especially because so I had that happen to me on that mission with a girl that becomes a Ripper, and also you put in the camp.
All of that was pointless.
So that I met her because that was the only mission I had in my card. Then she went, "Oh, I can't talk to you here," walked off, and then honestly spent 20 minutes walking around the camp, because the way it looked in the mission was that she was walking off to hide somewhere so you could talk to her.
Okay.
So I was like walking around the camp looking for her, and I was like, well, this isn't working. And I was like, I think my game's bugged. And then I don't know what I did. Oh, I ended up going on Reddit, and they basically said just leave the camp and they'll phone you. So I just had to drive about for a bit. So silly. So silly.
Yeah.
Sorry. I
sometimes get it in the middle of doing something. Like, you'd fast travel to another mission, and then you'd get phone calls while you're there doing the mission from somebody else. And yeah, it was weird. I'm not sure. I mean, I like the way that they kind of sort of interspersed that you could see after you'd completed a mission, couldn't you? Like, oh, you've also done something in this one and this one, because Boozer was involved and Addy was involved and Ricky was involved. So their missions have now gone a little bit more progression as well. But yeah, just the fact that you have to be called to do it was so shit. Especially if you're already in the camp. Just give me it.
Yeah. Just there needs to be a better way. And like the constantly, like when you're like with Ricky and Copeland and the lady, where you'd like go up to them and it would just always say no jobs available. Like I thought like I felt like at some point there were going to be like a message board and you could just go up and take multiple jobs from them. But it was 100%. So rare. And the only time you can get a job
especially
from
when you're
them
trying
is
it,
if
like
they
as
phoned
we
you
said.
first.
Yeah, especially because it takes so long, as we said, to build the trust up in those camps. It would eliminate so much of the length of the game if, rather than, oh, well, Tucker's going to call you in 20 hours, so then you'll be able to get to level 3. It's like, can I just go talk to her now? She must need stuff doing. But obviously, almost always, it was just, someone's been kidnapped, or somebody came in and killed people and then left, go get them. Like, you're just a murderer for hire.
Yeah, basically. So daft.
Right. Do you want to talk about the overall story? Because we've broken down our notes here into all the sort of the main characters. We can either go through that, or we can do the overall story first of all. But we've kind of touched on that anyway, and how it's just a bit weak.
Yeah, I don't know. I would maybe do the overall story, and then because then we may cover stuff in that rather than go over it twice, I suppose. We could do each individual bit. If you want.
Let's do that. Let's do that then. So should we start with Boozer then? Because he's a big part of the opening game.
Yeah, let's do Boozer. What's Boozer?
So, the beginning of the game, I don't know how soon before it tells you that you've got a bounty on your head from the Rippers, but at the early part of the game,
it alludes to it.
Yeah. It's centered around the fact that you get ambushed by some Rippers, and Boozer gets his arm very badly burnt with a blowtorch by them. And then you're basically just chatting to him on your headset as you go around trying to do things for him, get meat for him, get meds for him. And a lot of this is sort of interspersed back with these flashbacks of Sarah and how she's taught you how to pick flowers. So now you know how to pick flowers.
Yeah.
He eventually ends up losing his arm. Now, I was almost certain that Boozer was just going to die from this.
I thought he was going to die, and I thought he was going to get turned into a freaker, and you were going to have to kill him in some sort of dramatic cutscene that was meant to be more impactful than it was. So thankfully they didn't do that.
Yeah, I think I'm surprised that didn't happen to anybody. Actually,
yeah.
No one gets to. Is there ever actually any implication in this game that that's how you get turned?
No,
because aren't they not talking about it being a pandemic thing? I don't know if you do get turned by being bitten.
No, I wonder if the people that are still alive are all just immune. It seems.
Yeah, there's never really any explanation as to how they are alive.
Yeah, I'm not even sure how the virus was disseminated, because it seems to be like you could catch it, because the guy that had the virus, he stole it and went to some sort of virus convention, didn't he? And then when everybody came back from the virus convention, they were all infected, and then it disseminated itself that way. So you've got to think it's airborne and catchable.
Because it was on a flight back, right? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Everybody on the plane got infected. Yeah.
Yeah. So it must be airborne and it must be catchable, which means everyone that doesn't have it has been exposed to it. So they just must be immune, is the only sort of conclusion I can come to.
And weirdly, we'll jump straight into O'Brien now. He's the one who seems to be wearing the fucking kit from the very first time you see him, which is the very nascent stages of the outbreak, when he saves Sarah on the helicopter. And yet he...
Oh, yeah, and he's got his virus
is actually
kit on,
a freaker the whole time. He never seems to have taken it off.
No. Yeah, I wonder why... Yeah, how long after the outbreak is...
I can't actually remember that part.
Because, why does he turn up already kitted up like that?
Where did they come from? Did they come from somewhere else? Because it's revealed, isn't it, that they knew about the virus spreading in other states way earlier, and they didn't tell anyone. Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe he was from one of them and he'd been infected already. I don't know.
Yeah, it could have been. Yeah. But it's also unclear how much he knew or didn't know.
It seems like he didn't really know too much at first, right? Because that's why he makes you eavesdrop on people all the time.
Yeah.
But he obviously has an inclination that something shit's going down. But then again, he's a freaker himself. So why if he's an evolving freaker, is he trying to make you follow the researchers to try and help him cure himself? Or why is he so interested in knowing about the evolution when he's already a freaker?
Maybe he's just trying to, I don't know, finding out what they already knew, but he seems like he got on okay, because he's just got the good bits from the virus. He's not got the bad bits, really. I mean, he looks a bit weird. Because when you do
get the reveal, there's Nero soldiers behind him that don't react in any way.
No, it actually makes me think they're all like that too, because you can't ever kill a Nero soldier. And I wonder if that's the narrative explanation for that is because they're super infected and you just can't kill them.
You'd assume if they ever were going to plan to do a sequel, that you'd have to fight these.
Yeah, I assume
they must have to eventually find a way to do it, but
yeah,
certainly explains why you never see any of their faces.
Yeah.
But the Nero soldiers seem to be totally oblivious. Like, why are you doing this? What's going on? Why are we looking at freakish shit all the time?
Oh, that's true. Yeah, it doesn't make much sense, really, does it?
No.
Unless, I mean,
are
we sure that O'Brien was a freaker from the start? Because I guess it would make slightly more sense if he became a freaker later on.
Yeah, do you see his face in the opening bit with Sarah? Can you see him through the mask? I think maybe you can. Can you?
Oh, can you maybe? I don't know.
Does he have like a see-through visor and then every other time it's black?
Oh, maybe. The only time I remember consciously noticing his face is because he's wearing a name badge with his face on it the whole time.
Yeah. Because he takes Sarah to this camp. The camp gets overrun. But then obviously when Deacon finds out that O'Brien is still alive, he then realises or rationalises that Sarah must still be alive because she was with him, so obviously they survived together. Now, if he did get infected at that camp, despite the fact he was wearing the full body kit, Sarah didn't get infected, so that's weird as well.
Yeah, and why, he must have got it later, because if he's as strong and powerful as he is at the end of the game in the secret ending or the true ending, why is he apparently as scared of Deacon for 3/4 of the game?
Yeah, he's a complete wiener, isn't he?
Yeah. So he must have developed that.
Yeah, because you'd think your instinctual fear as a freaker would be removed by design.
Yeah.
Otherwise, why would they run face first at you all the time?
Yeah.
Into fire, into machine gun fire. Like, he shouldn't be afraid of anything at this point, unless he's just. What's he gained by being a freaker? What? Other than he looks grey. Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. I forgot. He's a bit more agile now. I forgot about that.
Yeah, that's another thing I wish they had sort of worked on as well. Is like they spend a lot of time sort of explaining to the player through exposition that there are some freakers that are developing faster than others and that are more intelligent and appear to have kept some memories. Like there's the ones that wear less dirty clothes and put watches on and things like that. But there's no gameplay repercussion to that. It just sort of tells you and then expects you to just sort of take that as given, but it doesn't change the way the freakers behave in any way towards you.
Yep.
So it just feels a bit forced, I think.
That would have been an interesting thing if you somehow find a group of freakers that become intelligent enough to have like conversations with you, or maybe even use weapons against you.
Make them start using weapons, or even like when you're clearing out nests later on in the game, like they could change the way the nests look to have like stuff littered about inside them, maybe less messy, maybe they like watches and jewellery and stuff that they're obviously wearing, but there's none of that at all. They just sort of tell you and then you've just got to accept it and keep killing them.
Yeah. Very weird. Very glossed over pointless parts, because those creeping around listening to them missions were so dull. Instant fail missions can fuck off for the rest of time.
And there was only one way to do a lot of it as well. It was like figure out exactly how you want us to do.
I just realised we were talking about instant fail missions. The next game we're going to play is basically an entirely instant fail mission throughout the whole fucking game. God damn it!
Excellent. So yeah, that's Boozer covered, right?
Well, I mean, after we get the antibiotics for him, he gets like blood poisoning. He loses his arm, and then he becomes very depressed. We go on a mission with him at some point because we allow. Is it where we allow him to sort of join us in a mission? But that's when he finds the fucking Rippers are killing dogs, and he goes mental and keeps running off to kill a bunch of Rippers. And then there's that other mission where he gets drunk as fuck. But then when you go and meet him and you finally catch up to him, he's totally lucid, totally fine.
Yeah,
he keeps ringing you on your walkie-talkie like, "Hey, I'm gonna stick you a tongue," and then he has a really emotional conversation when you actually catch up to him.
Yeah,
very strange.
Yeah,
Then later on, he helps us blow up the dam to kill the Rippers, and then of course, finally, we have his redemption arc where he's the driver of the truck. We think he dies blowing up in the militia.
Yeah, I was like, "Oh my!" Dead. I had actually written a text to you. I can't believe Boozer's Dominic Santiago'd himself from Gears of War.
Yeah. Did you ever think he was actually dead?
I thought he was dead but I didn't think he was back alive. I was pleased to see him back alive, to be honest. I just took it at face value. I mean, it didn't make sense to me the way that he would just kill himself after he seemed to like life again for no reason whatsoever, when he could have just jumped out the car. But I just sort of took that.
There was no reason for him not to have, was there?
Yeah.
When you look into the window, it says something different. Is he tied himself to it or something? Is that why Deacon's like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Something like that. There was supposed to be some indication that.
Yeah.
Because at one point he goes, "Oh, Ricky rigged this up for me, and it's just a rope." And I'm like, "Well done, Ricky. You give him a rope." Don't know. That bit was daft. But I'm glad he survived, because he goes from being annoying to being quite a likable dude, I think.
100%. And I almost felt like I felt silly and manipulated when I was like, "Yay, Boozer!" at the end, because it's just like it's not really earned any of this. But I am really glad to see that he's still there, because I like him so much more than Sarah.
Yeah, and did you? I think I said this to you before. I'm not sure you had the same experience, but like when you go back to Iron Mike's camp to sleep, he's always sitting outside in a deck chair, but he's got the deadest eyes and just sort of stares off into the distance and doesn't ever take you on or anything. And I just found it funny because like that kind of made sense when he was depressed, but then even when he was better, he still did it. And then it would be pouring with rain, and he'd still be outside just deadly staring off into the distance, just him and his dog getting soaking wet.
Just thinking about the next day where he has to go work for Schizo again. He's just still not really that happy. The dog mission was the one where I felt horrible because it was crying a lot and I couldn't figure out how to get it out of the toilet. And I kept saying to you, didn't I? Like, I'm getting upset now. You've got to tell me how to do this because I can't get the fucking door open. Very horrible.
Yeah, and did you come across the dog toy later on? So like once you've got the dog, you can go back to him. You find a dog toy somewhere, you can go back to him and give him a chew. And he just sort of plays with it or holds it in his mouth.
Oh, I think I found the chew, but I don't think I ever went back and gave it to the dog.
You're going to have to load that game up, mate. Get it loaded up.
Yeah.
Go and give him the chew. Save,
give a dog a good day.
Off. Yeah.
Of course, I guess the second biggest part of Deacon's life is his wife Sarah, who we obviously think is dead for a large part of the game. Well, he thinks she's dead. I don't think anybody playing actually thought she was dead.
Yeah.
Some of the worst parts of the entire game was just him going to a gravestone and just talking to it.
Yeah, and it was so bad
that
I
horrible
still
flashbacks.
kept doing it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I skipped it. I skipped one of them because I was like, he's just going to tell me what I've just done, so I don't need to hear this. I've just done it. He's just going to go tell Sarah about it. So after we've gone through basically all the flashbacks and they're looking at photos of her and whatnot, we then obviously find that she is still alive. She is working in the militia on a what we are told is a bioweapon at the beginning when we first see her, but obviously it's not a bioweapon she's working on. She's actually trying to work on a cure. We've already discussed sort of why, the fact that they are incredibly cold. The reunion feels like a massive anticlimax until they go on a run together. They go to a college campus.
Quite like that mission, actually.
It was good, wasn't it? Especially when she's kind of sat there, like, gunning them down, and she's just kind of, like, totally, like, spaced out at the end of it. Mm-hmm. Then, following that, we go on another mission back to Cloverdale, her old place of work, which is where we find that the story starts to really, or at least the main motivations behind some of the enemy parts of the game opens up in terms of, we see that all of our old co-workers have been gunned down in the car park by the security staff. We then find out that people knew about what was going on. They were making her work on things that she didn't understand were actually part of the virus. Is that right?
Yeah, I think I just took it to be that she designed the virus inadvertently.
Yeah. Which is pretty crazy, the fact that she finds that out and then realizes she was part of the end of the world, and Deacon's like, oh well, we better go kill that colonel though. He's a bit of a dick.
He wanted to be the next Edward Snowden. They actually say that in that game. I was like, well, funny. Getting political.
Once we find out that she's trying to work on a cure, Sarah then sort of almost kidnapped. Effectively, she gets put into this ark, which is inside sort of like a cave system from the colonel.
That's right.
And Deacon then decides he has to try and get her off the island, which proves to be harder than he thought because he's going to get O'Brien to airlift them out, but the colonel kind of stops them until he's poisoned by Sarah, and then we go on the big blowy uppy door mission with Boozer's fake death, and then we get her out the old-fashioned way.
Go wild, yep.
I only really liked Sarah once she met up with Boozer again and started to talk about how she was mates with Boozer. I thought, oh, that's nice. They had a little, like, 3-part relationship going on there where she's friends with his friend, and that was nice. But other than that, she was relatively well voice acted by the woman who did the voice of, is it Elizabeth in BioShock Infinite?
Oh, that's right, yeah.
But the character, I just couldn't get on board with, as we've already discussed. She seemed embarrassed by Deacon. She didn't really seem to fit the fact that she would be with a biker like that when she's such an intelligent, like, hugely important woman.
The sort of character justification for her being with a biker was that she had an arm tattoo. It seemed to be the entire thing.
Yeah. Probably, as we already said, the one of the main antagonists in the game is Schizo. This
comic book villain.
Yeah, he's dressed to look as if he's some kind of like, gangbanger, but I think it turns out that he's kind of not. He's sort of had a relatively normal upbringing with a sort of rich dad. I think he went to a good school.
Yeah.
But as we've said earlier on, he seems to just be a dick for the sake of being a dick. Just to be contrarian to everything that Iron Mike believes and everything that, the rest of the camp is there for. He's this like disgruntled head of security who wants to oust Iron Mike because he knows what's best for the camp. Blah, 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 blah. He does a lot of manipulating of Deacon. If you read through the Deacon notes again, he goes through this arc of like thinking he's a dick, then he starts to trust him because Deacon has a big enough problem with the Rippers as well because of what they did to Boozer's arm. So Schizo basically manipulates Deacon to go, once we need some extra antibiotics to cure Boozer, then Schizo says, well, the only place you can get them is from this Ripper camp, which we go in, we kill all the Rippers, we steal their drugs. That then breaks this treaty that Iron Mike has had with Carlos, the head of the Rippers. And at that point then, I believe that's when we get kicked out of the camp briefly. They have this big showdown, don't they, Iron Mike and Schizo's like grassing you up and siding with Iron Mike for a little bit, and you get booted out. And there's a part as well where Schizo goes to parlay with the Rippers, to parlay with Carlos, but it actually turns out that he then makes a deal with Carlos and brings all the Rippers down on Lost Lake camp, and they do this massive ambush of the camp, and they wage war on us. Iron Mike imprisons Schizo, but then doesn't kill him. He lets him go in the end. Yeah. Even though Iron Mike is actually killed in that attack on the camp, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. He gets shot by Schizo, I think.
Is it really?
I think so.
I mean,
because there's that chat where he tells people that he's going to poison like the water source, but they never actually build upon that. And then he's like, I didn't want it to go down like that. I didn't want to kill him. And it's like, well, what did you want it to go down like? What were you expecting?
Oh yeah, I forgot about the poisoning the water source thing. Yeah. Yeah, and then later on, Schizo, of course he does, he joins the militia and becomes a dickhead again and tries to oust Deacon as this bad guy to the Colonel and try and ruin everything that's going on. And then eventually, when we do the attack on the militia camp ourselves later in the game, we finally get to kill Schizo in a cool looking street. One thing this game did quite well is when you have like gunfights in a darkened area and the muzzle flash, just like it's almost impossible to see anything.
It's really well done. Yeah, I think torches are like uniquely bad in video games, and like they seem to think that light, like when you turn a torch on, you just get that single beam of light and everything around it's dark. It's not how torches work, mate. But they do like light play really well. That's a great point.
What do you think to Schizo and Iron Mike?
Oh, I just found them like a bit like the rest of the game. Really, they were just a bit obvious and a bit uninteresting. Like as soon as you met Schizo, you knew how this was going to go. You knew even before he opened his as soon as he opened his mouth, he was going to betray Iron Mike. He was going to cause you some sort of trouble. And I feel like I saw Iron Mike death coming a mile away as well, because he's like sort of they try and make him be like some sort of, especially with Ricky, some sort of father figure. So like they've got to like Dumbledore or Mufasa him and like remove the father figure so that the younger people can come up and, I don't know, become the leaders that they're meant to be, because with him still in the story they can't do that. So he was always going to die. And then like when you go and can you explain this to me? One thing that I didn't really understand is when you go to get the map for the TNT or something like that from the courthouse.
To blow up the cave. So
what's the story there? Like, what's the story there? What's Iron Mike done? Did he kill all of those people in that room that you go into? I didn't really understand, because at some point Deacon goes, "Oh, you just wanted me to see this, didn't you?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "See what? I've either not been listening or I've not picked up on something that's happened here."
Yeah, I can't actually remember that myself.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure if it was trying to, if they were just supposed to have been like, you wanted to see all these people who turned into freakers and died, or just.
Yeah,
no, they weren't freakers, were they? They were normal, weren't they?
No, because he says they came in for a meeting, and he's like, there was only one person that walked away from this room, and it was Mike. And I just didn't quite understand why they had a fight with each other. I didn't really get that.
That's the we've all done things storyline, isn't it?
Yes, and that's why Mike is like, "Oh, we need to rebuild this world and do business with people we don't like," sort of nonsense.
Yeah,
that's where that comes from.
That's never really fleshed out as to why he basically massacred all these people, and whether they were infected at early stages or whether they were just threatening him in the camp or something, and that's maybe why he felt so determined to keep this treaty with Carlos from the Rippers going forward, so that he never went through that again. You said it yourself when we were talking off air that he just seems like this like idealist to a fault, effectively.
Yeah. Because it's also not clear, like, because like Deacon's like, "Oh, I found out that Skizzo's got all these plans," and Mike's like, "Yeah, no. Do you think I can't handle him?" And so it's almost like he knows what Skizzo's up to, but I don't know, just lets it happen. Yeah, I don't really get.
Yeah, because Skizzo says that he wants to oust. He says, I want to overthrow the camp. Basically, I want to get Iron Mike out, and I'm going to take over because Iron Mike doesn't know what's best, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But obviously Iron Mike doesn't know how to handle it because he ends up dead, and Skizzo does exactly what he threatens to do.
Yeah, and they have the fight
times.
that he was trying to avoid. Yeah. He tries to avoid like mass killing, and that's just exactly what happens. So yeah, you're right. Ultimately, he does fail.
Yeah. I didn't mind
Ricky
him.
Is a cat. Sorry, carry on. Didn't mean to. No, carry on. You didn't mind.
I didn't mind Iron Mike in terms of, there's a lot of the early stages of the game where it just felt like everyone was a bit of a dick, and no one was really likable. Yeah. Whereas he seemed relatively redeemable, at least that he had ideals, and he had sort of a stance and an aura about him that at least kind of fit what he was doing. Whereas a lot of the other people were just kind of dull or annoying. Skizzo was just annoying. Ricky was a little bit dull. Addy was a bit dull.
Did you get the bit where they tried to sort of talk about why everyone was a dick? Like, so I had this ruined for me, and they never redid it. So I was doing a mission with someone, and there was someone on my back, like on the bike with me, and someone went, "Why is everyone in this world a dick?" or something like that, and then Deacon out of nowhere just drops like knowledge bombs on prison populations and percentages, and he's like, X% of the prison. But then when he started dropping all these statistics, and I was like, "Oh my god, where's this come from?" And then something happened that made me have to get off my bike. I got attacked by wolves or something like that, and they never finished it. So I didn't hear what happened. Did you?
I must have heard
I think
it.
You've maybe forgotten since. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I think that's a good point, actually. The fact that he sort of says, so much of the population was in prison that everybody's kind of got some kind of hidden secret or got a dark past, or everyone's been bad at some point in their life, and now we're just kind of through instinct and through survival, we're all just reverting to that sort of thing. I completely forgot about that. Listeners will have to forgive us that this game is so fucking long that we are going to gloss over or forget some parts of what's happened.
And there was bits of this where we were. I think overall I did enjoy this game, but like there was bits where I was just like, I just need to get through this. Like it was so long in the tooth, so long in the tooth.
Yeah, it was good. It's when it gets to those points where like you're not really playing the game and you're going through like here's the start of a mission. You see the cutscene, you walk a few yards, another cutscene plays, you then get on a bike with somebody and they start talking, you get to the place, the cutscene plays, you walk around, a cutscene play. It just felt like I'm not really playing any game right now. I'm just watching like 15 minutes of uninspired, not that interesting dialogue, and I just want to fucking get the game done. Stop talking at me.
It's
the
one of those
beginning
things,
is very
I guess.
like that as well.
What's the word? I think the word is ludonarrative dissonance. But like I think open world games suffer from this. I mean, Red Dead Redemption 2 is the archetypal example of like they create this world that they want you to exist and explore and sort of bend to your will and do your own thing in it and sort of allow the player a lot of agency. And then when they actually want to move the story forward, they just remove all control from the player and sort of just like stick them in these linear situations that is the complete antithesis of what the game wants you to actually do. It's a problem, isn't it? I guess, but then it's a problem that all these games in this genre suffer from. But it's interesting that nobody's really come up with a proper solution to that.
No, they've all just copied the one that GTA's been doing for 15, 20 years, which is get in a car, go somewhere, and they'll just do the exposition while you're in the car. Just get that out of the way.
Yeah,
but
it's interesting. Sorry, I don't mean to speak over you there.
I think you did.
Got I wonder if we move on, like, because I think we can probably get these two come as a bit of a pair, so we can probably just clean them up together. But you didn't like her so much, but I quite liked Ricky. I ended up liking her more than I liked Sarah, at least until.
Oh, I like her more than Sarah. Yeah,
like I just found her quite a likable character. And wish you got to hear a bit more about her. So like when she was talking about how she used to run with Deacon in the gang and then left, and like there was illusions that I feel like weren't tidied up as to like why she left. And then like when you're at the power station and she's talking about like her engineering past and where she came from and a bit about her family and stuff, I found her quite an interesting character. And the relationship with Addie was, to me, a bit obvious. Like Addie was obviously jealous of, and Addie was obviously a bit jealous of Deacon's threat, so to speak, in quotation marks. But I mean, based on some of the stuff that happened, it was totally justified. The only thing
there's
I guess
a
in that
tiny little bit in Deacon's notes where he says about that, and he says something along the lines of seeing Addie and Ricky argue about tiny little shitty things is a good indication that we can eventually get back to normal and just be normal people arguing about silly things.
Oh, that's a great little bit. Mm-hmm. That's Addie, and then like Addie herself, it wasn't massively deep, but I did quite enjoy the sort of arc between like when you find out that she was actually a vet, not an actual doctor. And she's sort of just muddling along, and she seems to start struggling with the pressure of it all. And then Deacon,
she says, "I can't do this anymore," doesn't she?
Yeah. And Deacon sort of.
But
gives
then
her a bit
she
of a
redeems
pep talk.
herself. Yeah, and then she starts she becomes like a field medic. She's actually helping militia people out apparently. And Deacon says, "Oh yeah, there you go. She's the doctor that I always knew she was because she's actually acting like one now," kind of thing. Yeah. Very small arc, but nicely redemptive, and she had no issue. Like there was nothing bad about her character. She was just sort of as you say, struggling to help people under the immense pressure of being the only medic. Kind of carries with it. So I quite liked her.
Yeah, and I guess like I don't think he's in this list, but the other medic in the militia camp, he just seemed like a generally nice guy, but I guess his story arc was less about him and more about the colonel sort of keeping important people wrapped up. But ultimately, he does get killed as well.
Yeah, it sort of crossed over with that Wade. What's his name? Wade something or other. Taylor, is it?
Oh yeah, the junkie guy who's so annoying.
Kills him.
I don't know why
Deacon.
Don't know why Deacon interacts with him very much. He keeps phoning him and like making fun of his name and stuff. It's like, you are not likable, mate. Yeah. And he's so naive after being in the fucking this shit for 2 years. It's like, how are you still so naive to what's happening?
Yeah, same with that Lisa girl. Like when she's just gone batshit mental and expecting her parents to come back. It's like, it's been 2 years, love. What have you eaten for 2 years? Where have you got food from? If you haven't had to go out and see the dead zombie people roaming about, it's really strange.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the only things we've kind of got left to talk about is the Colonel and then Carlos and the Rippers. Should we go through Carlos first? Because I know that you, in coming to terms with what Boozer and Deacon did to Carlos when he was still known as Jesse Williamson made you very much dislike Deacon and find him irredeemable from the standpoint of the holding down, burning off his bike stuff.
Yeah, because that's, to be honest, that's one of the few times that I feel like Deacon and Boozer actually act like the archetypal or classic like biker people, and like you were saying, like they're not nice people. But yeah, I just found like that's it's like there's to me in narrative, and maybe this is my naivety or ignorance or unwillingness to sort of adapt, but like I feel like if like it's obvious that the game's writer's aim was to make Deacon and Boozer ultimately likable rogues that were a bit rough around the edges, but basically nice and good people. If you're going to create a character like that, there are some lines that you just shouldn't be crossing. And I think like holding a man down, regardless of the crime, I mean, like if he's a murderer, get him put in jail. Like, don't torture him by like blow-torching a tattoo off his, because that strays from being a bit of a badass, a bit of a rogue, someone that doesn't play by the rules, into like evil vindictiveness, someone that can do that to a person. Regardless of your odd warped logic. Point, aren't you? Yeah, regardless of like some warped logic, like that is a horrible, evil thing to do to a person. And like I was like, how can I then look at these two as characters? I mean, admittedly, they're mass murderers that were killing like hundreds of people, but that's again back to ludonarrative dissonance. So that's like, I mean, GTA broaches that with the torture sequence with what's his name. But they
Trevor, is it?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, but they sort of take I'm forgetting the words, and I'm not up on psychology enough to be able to use it. But like, there's like id, a bit like id's and something else. But like, so like the three characters in GTA 5 are like the representations of a person's psychology, isn't it? It's like, and Trevor's pure id, so he's the reason for. Or he's sort of the vehicle to allow you to do the mad things that you do, and they approach that in a way that you're like, oh, this guy is actually really bad. And then there's a scene where he like kills it, like it alludes to like having like that he's a rapist and stuff like that. And they actually like, I think, broach that in interesting ways. This just made them do awful things, and just sort of let them spaff it off as if it was just a nothing thing. I really didn't like it. I don't know how you felt about it. Sorry, I've just been talking about it exhaustively.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you're right. And then at the same time, they try and portray him as this sort of like Casanova, like, you know, he sweet talks Sarah with all of his quips and his jokes and his, you know, everybody. You walk into a camp and everyone's like, "Hey, Deke, hey, man." But at the end of the day, you know, he has lived a life where he has been far, like, beyond the reaches of the law, and he has done these irredeemable things that should really have been painted on him from the start if they really want us to not react in a way of just confusion after that. It's kind of just like, what do you want me to feel at this point when you're telling me that they did this? Am I now supposed to hate the character that I'm playing? Because you've given me a lot of time with him at this point where I've just found him a little bit annoying. Now I find out that he's, you know, that he 100%. Was this sort of big bad biker man who lives by the, you know, the code of the gang that he's in, and, you know, we do our own justice here and whatever.
And they never another example of like a way it's done well is Arthur Morgan in Red Dead 2, in that he has committed some awful heinous crimes, and like he'll admit it, and throughout most of the game he's like, I'm a bad guy, like don't look at me. But then because it's written so well, they redeem him because he sort of has to come to terms with what he's doing as he's coming towards his death. Red Dead 2 spoiler, sorry. They don't do this with it. We don't do this with Deacon. At one point he says, "Oh, I feel bad about it." And that's it.
He actually
you feel bad about it? That's big of you. Well done. Like,
which he actually only says to a grave, Sarah's grave, that she's not even in.
Yeah.
He doesn't admit that to a person. He just admits it to a bit of stone.
Yeah. And they do this, like... They do this thing where they're like... They tease that Deacon and Boozer, there's a reason that the Rippers are looking for them. And then you find out why. And I'm like, yeah, of course he's mad. Of course he's not happy with that. It's like, you are in the wrong here, guys. Like, you didn't have done... Like, that's not good. So, like...
Yeah, I mean,
so
obviously,
I
Jesse Carlos was a piece of shit himself. He's obviously a murderer, and he has become an absolute psychopath. Whereas Deacon has obviously maintained some level of humanity in juxtaposition of that, but it's more of a... he's not exactly a man that isn't dangerous. He may have more of a blasé kind of I'm going to be helpful attitude to life, but he is still, as we said, a murderer for hire in the post-apocalyptic world. He's not necessarily a good guy. He's doing things for the good of people he cares about, but the things he's doing are still far removed from normal society's rules.
Yeah, and the stuff that in sort of the reaction in the Iron Mike situation where he tells Deacon to leave the Rippers alone, and then Deacon goes and murders basically every single Ripper. That just is like, yeah, he's going to help you out and he's going to do some good things if you conform to his narrow mind and belief of what is right and what is wrong. Like, if you step out of that, he will murder you happily.
Yeah, and
if you're sticking to his code.
Yeah, if you're going to stick us in the avatar of this character who is supposedly, this what they want us to him, or they want him to be likable, maybe some sort of anti-hero sort of thing going on, but what you're actually doing is you're just causing chaos throughout the entire of this state. You are this effectively you're like the Ghost of Tsushima, really. You're less conflicted about it. He's just kind of like, he just takes it in his stride. Like, oh, sorry, you need me to go kill someone? Yep, fine. All right, I'll go do that.
And do you also feel that, like, so, like, I feel like the overall message is like a bunch of people striving for a better world. And so, like, if you take Iron Mike's like willingness and openness and thinking, like, we have to work with these people, we have to rebuild something, and then the sort of the character loop when it comes around where Deacon starts talking about, I'm lighting candles and I've got hope and stuff, like,
yeah, the
actual the gameplay reality of that is at complete odds to what the game is trying to tell you narratively. So the game's narratively is trying to tell you about this story of working together with people and hope for a better tomorrow and that you can rebuild the earth, whereas the actual gameplay is the exact opposite of that. You're killing hundreds of people, and then at the end, even when you go and kill the militia, you lay waste to entire, like, communities of people. And it's just like these don't match up. What you're shooting for here, the message you're shooting for, doesn't match with what you're making me do gameplay wise. Yeah,
you have just ended the game effectively by, oh, it's good now because we run this camp instead and we're better than they were. Are you though? I mean, you've solved all of your issues through absolute heinous violence on a huge scale, but you've done it while making jokes and looking cool with a backwards hat on. So does that make you better than them then, does it? Because you've got a nice mate who lost an arm and you've got a pretty girlfriend who tries her best. But you're better than the people in the militia camp that you were buying gun ammo off of, are you? You're better than the woman who was running the kitchen. What the fuck has she done wrong? She's dead now because what? Because she hung out with the colonel who was just...
She was probably looking for somewhere
fanatic,
safe.
Really.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've sent people to this camp. You've rescued survivors and told them to go to Wizard Lake, and then you fucking murdered them because they were there. You told them to go there, you fucking asshole.
Oh, we didn't touch
on that. The guy's like, oh, thank you so much, man. I thought I was a goner. You will be a goner when I come back and fuck you up later on.
Yeah, exactly. Until the first half of the game, every survivor I encountered out in the wild was the same guy. And we spoke about that.
Pebbles shirt on or whatever it was.
Yeah. And I just, like I was saying to you, in my head, it just became a bit of a running joke in my head. Is that the right word? But I just assumed he was the same person trying to get to safety, and he just kept making a mess of it every time. He just kept.
I would love that.
Coming to rescue him because he always said the same line as well.
Yeah. Even when they started changing the race of him, he still had the same voice and said the same thing. Even like when you had to go rescue like one of the members of the militia who's like a fucking sergeant, and he's still just like, oh, thank God, man, I was a gunner, holy shit. But I would have loved that if Deacon was just like, you again? And it was like a running progressed story. That'd have been so much better than just carbon copy cutouts of the same fucking character model.
Oh,
Jesus.
Funny game.
Yeah,
where did we get to there?
Well, basically, that's it, other than the colonel and the militia. So, you know, we find that... I can't even remember why he buggers off at this point. Is it because he's looking for... Does he just go to look for Sarah after the camp's been overrun? Why did we go north again, or south, wherever it is?
He's trying to find a way over the top, isn't he? And he goes... It's after he kills all of the rippers, and then Iron Mike's like, I'll show you how to get away if you promise not to come back. And then Iron Mike shows you.
Yes.
But then doesn't tell anyone he's done that, because there's a line later on where people are like, oh, I thought we'd never see you again. Where did you go? And it's like, well, Iron Mike basically made me an outlaw. He threw me out. So
yeah.
That's why. But like neither Deacon nor Iron Mike seem to ever communicate that to anyone at any point.
That's right. Yeah, it's after you get kicked out by Iron Mike, isn't it? The big showdown, and then he says, "But I will show you how to go find your wife." They have this really nice chat about fishing or something, don't they? On the drive out, even though he's effectively outlawed you and kicked you out, forced you to leave your crippled friend.
Other than the sort of religious lunacy and the strict rules, like that militia camp was a fortress, man. That had that stuff nailed. Like you should have get the colonel out, and that's a pretty good place to be.
Yeah, because how's that any worse than Tucker, who's forcing people into slave labor?
Yeah. Who knows?
Because he was basically, the colonel's whole thing is that he believes that the freakers have not been caused by a pandemic. They've actually been caused by the sins of man, and we are now in hell, effectively. And we all deserve it, but we have to sort of fight through it and then rebuild from there.
Rebuild through hanging everyone.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, we'll give them a trial, but they're going to hang for it. So that's kind of that. And he's basically built a fortress and is now deciding on how to completely wipe out all the freaks through various, what he believes is a bioweapon developed by Sarah, or these napalm molotovs being developed by Weaver, who is kind of initially slightly annoying when he's always going on about Deacon's wife, and Deacon doesn't just punch the guy in the face for all this stuff that he keeps saying about how he'd hit his wife.
I'm an ass man.
Sexual way. Oh yeah. But he makes us go get his fucking iPod for him and stuff. But he ends up taking over the camp from the colonel in the end.
Is that right? Is that how that goes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I think at some point you go up and you see the fact that if you go back to the Wizard Island or whatever it is, then Weaver is now in the seat of the colonel. His turning point, as we said, is when the doctor dies. He kind of loses it after that, and he starts to go more and more insane and locking all these people in this big ark or cave. He punches Sarah in the face, and I can't remember why he hits her, but he does it for some reason, which obviously that's what sets Deacon off and decides he's got to get her out of there. And then they obviously fail to get the escape plan sort of completed, because as you're heading over to the helicopter sort of landing point, the colonel walks out and catches you in the act, and they just sort of flies away. So Sarah has to poison him with her hemlock tea.
He's just given Schizo a tour of the camp.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you're about to escape, and then here's my old mate Schizo.
Aye, Schiz.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the colonel was acted very, very well. He was sort of very extreme, but sort of like he had extreme views, but he was always sort of tempered about all of it. He kept this like air of authority about him. He never kind of went nuts the way that Deacon would have done. He was kind of like Iron Mike, but with more of a ruthlessness about him.
Yeah.
And was, I would say, somewhat more of an interesting villain than Schizo was. He was boring in terms of I had to listen to his fucking speeches about Jesus and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and he was very obvious as well. Like, it was clear where this character was going. But I think he was a better villain than Schizo. Schizo was just, at least the Colonel, like, as boring and straightforward and obvious as it was, at least the Colonel had a clear and obvious motivational story arc. Like, you seen why he was doing things. Whereas Schizo was just chaos for chaos' sake, in my opinion.
Yeah. And the only other guy really in the militia was that Curry guy, who starts off sort of okay, but he's got Deacon's ring on, and therefore he becomes sort of suspicious. But the fact is, they never really go anywhere with that. It's just like, why is he wearing your ring? Oh, they made us give up all of our jewelry when we enter, and he just took it. Oh.
Yeah.
You weren't banging him then? Oh, well, okay. Guess he's all right then. And then he obviously saves Deacon.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what happens at that. Is that when they find out that Deacon, or Schizo grasses him up, right? And then the militia then do stuff to him?
Yeah, they hit him and knock him out. Yeah. And then he wakes up and Kuri's, I don't know, somehow got him out of the camp and taken him away.
Yeah, but Kuri's now buggering off somewhere else to go live a new life somewhere. But Deacon can't go with him. He's got to go get his old lady back. Thus ends the story.
Everybody calls her the old lady. Oh my goodness.
What do they call her? The Witch of Wizard Island. The Wizard Island Witch or something.
For no reason. Like, why?
Just because she asks for stuff and makes people do it.
She's doing science.
Focused on her science, yeah. And then, as we said, that's where the ending of the game kicks in, which, as you've written here, is sort of, far better than the almost all of the rest of the story.
I remember you saying when I was getting to that sort of back end of the game, like right at the end, you're like, in a weird way, the game really sort of takes off and becomes good. And I was like, that is the most spot on analogy, like not analogy, but this like description of this game any of us have ever said, because you're right, it is like, on a dime, it just changes into like a good game that's well acted, the story's interesting and engaging, and you actually want to go and help the people. But everything up to that is silly, stupid.
Yeah. There's just, they just sort of put most of the drama and attention into the last 2 hours of the game. Other than Boozer's arm getting cut off, there's not really much of it before that.
Yeah. But yeah, that's it, I guess. And as we said before, and I guess like as we're saying, like, to me it's, well, I think, what did you say to you? It's a 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
Like straight
Went
across
on
the board.
far too long, but I enjoyed actually playing the game. It was quite nice to sort of just chill out and kill a bunch of zombies for a bit. The hordes were great. Yeah,
just like hanging out, chatting at night on a Friday night while we played some missions. Yeah, that was fun. The story is completely forgettable, and I don't want to play it for 60 hours, but I would like to at least see a sort of synopsis of what they would have done with Days Gone 2, especially with the secret endings that they sort of put in place.
Yeah. Is that completely off the cards? I'm just going to have to change my headphones, but you can carry on talking about that.
Well, it seems like it. So we've seen it's actually quite good timing, because we saw in the news this week that Sony Bend are now working on a new IP, reportedly. So it looks like they've just sort of canned off Days Gone 2. And if it's not Days Gone 2, well, it took them 6 years to get Days Gone out, and then they're working on a new IP, and then unless someone else would pick it up. But yeah, it doesn't seem like it's sold or done well enough to warrant a sequel. And I wonder if they were alluding to you being that Ripper girl in the second game, and them having sort of Deacon had become Iron Mike and he would just stay in the camp. I don't know, but that's something I did consider, because he seemed quite settled and like he'd become a camp boy, and she's like, I'm not staying in no camp, and he's like, you don't have to, just come and get something to eat. And that was it. Yeah, but that's what I would like to see where they've gone with it and what they did with it. But I don't want to play it.
No,
I don't think.
It looks like my recording stopped when I took my headphones out. So just you say now something to indicate I'm going to start talking, and then I should be able to put it back together again. Just say like, that'll do.
No.
Yeah. I don't know how I would want a second one to manifest itself if there ever was one. I think the biggest thing with this is that everyone was kind of disappointed about it, weren't they? Because it was like one of the big things that PS4 had as an exclusive for a good year or so. It was their most hyped up thing. It was what they kept talking about at events and things like that. It was what they had in the pipeline, and that was basically it.
Yeah.
And then it just came out, and it was everyone's just sort of saying it's just an average sort of game. It's not shit. It's kind of broken.
Yeah.
It's a bit long, but as you say, I don't know what the sales figures are like. Obviously, you and I, we haven't paid for it because it was on the PlayStation Plus collection for PS5 owners. So I'm pretty sure it's been on PS Plus as well normally since then, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
We've inadvertently started our October horror thing early with this game by playing a horror game for ages. If you can call it, can you call it a horror game?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I mean, it's, zombies are classical horror, aren't they? And it's a zombie. Yeah. I guess so. But yeah, so we kicked that off, and then we were going to move on to Deathloop, which we're going to have to put in the back burner because it's taken us so long to get through Days Gone. We're going to have to get going with our
Spooktoberfest.
Well, I'll let you drop the bomb.
So for the whole of October, we're going to play...
We're aiming to play 3 games, right?
We've got one for every week. We've got 4 games in the pipeline. One of them, though, is Back for Blood, so I don't know if we'll bother with that. We may have to scrap that one. Seems the least horror-ish.
We'll see how we go on. Yeah, it seems probably the least horror-ish, but also maybe one that we could probably get quite quickly to a point that we could podcast about. So yeah, I guess we can have the conversation on the podcast. It's probably interesting because like what we did, we changed it on this one, so we've actually been chatting behind the scenes about being aware of the fact that we'll say we're playing a game, then we start playing it and we don't like it, so then we have to change it, and then all of a sudden we pop up with a podcast. You're expecting one game, and actually we're playing a totally different game. We're aware of that, but it's like something we're trying to do better. Is trying to do that better. So like the games were like, right, we want to make a big deal out of October. There's lots of horror games, lots of fun, spooky, suspenseful games that we could play. So we've tried to get a spread of different games. Is that right? Feel free to interrupt me anytime. And we're going to try our best, but don't hold us to it. Get through 4 games in 4 weeks. Throughout October. So the first up we're currently playing, it's one of Alex's choices, Parasite Eve. Alex has made some great progress on that. I only started last night, but hopefully get another chance to play today. I'm quite enjoying it so far, so are you, as a little tidbit. Next up, we've got... What's next? Did we have on the list? You've got... In fact, you do it, because you've got the list.
We're going to play.
That's the one I think in my head there's a bit of a will we, won't we, because I hear it's quite a long game. It's around about 20 hours, I think. And neither of us, I'm not sure whether we'll both like it or not. But we'll see. We'll see by when we start playing it. We don't know. But that's one. But we'll let you know. We're going to stagger these podcasts a bit more so that I can actually get my finger out and start using the YouTube features. Please subscribe to us on YouTube. But also it gives me time to edit it so we can try and launch the podcast and the video at the same time. And then after that...
That's when we've got Back for Blood penciled in.
Is that Back for Blood?
That comes out on the 12th of October, I think. So we can kind of...
Penciled in.
We can play that other Friday night together, I think. And it's probably only going to take us a couple of sittings to get the game done. So that might be on the go at the same time as Alien Isolation. So that may pop up first. Because obviously the first week of October will definitely be Parasite Eve, and that is going to be the one we do after this. So that's going to be the week commencing the 4th of October. At some point in that week will be Parasite Eve.
Yeah. And the last one we've got Man of Medan,
which is another slightly shorter game from the guys who did Until Dawn, right? But not.
Yeah, because that was the original one. I loved Until Dawn, but I also don't know if I could be bothered playing it again. This is the same people, and I thought, well, I think this is also the first one in a trilogy. Is that right?
Coming out this month,
and
or next month.
Yeah, so if I like it, I'm just going to keep going, and I'm hoping I do like it. I did start it, and I was like, this is a bit silly, but if I feel like I'm more in the mood for it now. So we'll see how it goes. No promises, but that's what we're aiming to do at the moment.
Hopefully, if this podcast keeps going year on year, then this will be our regular October theme. Will be a bunch of horror games for Spooktoberfest, as I've decided to call it.
Yeah, and it'd be quite. Hopefully, we can get more listeners because it'd be quite fun to sort of extend that and sort of like big calendar events come up and we can theme things like looking for Christmas games might be fun.
Just playing fucking Freeze Easy Peak on Banjo-Kazooie over and over again on loop.
Yeah, and then here's the Spring Fest, and then we've got anything that's got a rabbit in it or anything that's like loosely spring related.
Mario Galaxy
I don't
B
know.
over and over.
Anyway, that's something we can think about. Yeah. But yeah, that's it. I think. Is there anything else you want to say about Days Gone? I feel like we've covered it quite well.
Only other than the fact that I found out
it's a hard game to cover
quite early on that it was called Days Gone because the game has a counter of how many days have gone since the apocalypse. Which I don't know what I thought when I heard the name of Days Gone. Did you ever? But certainly, I don't know why I never clicked that it was going to be talking about that.
Yeah, I wonder if our days are different or if it's set.
Well, I can load mine up right now, and I can tell you.
Downstairs.
You have to go downstairs, would you? At a rough guess, I ended up on about 870 something, 871 days gone.
I think I'm around about there. I'm between 850 and 900. It was 8.
Never ate a single meal.
Nope. Cut up of meat though.
Gave it to some random woman for something. Fucking here you go. Eat some wolf
for like two camp creds
and a bit of trust.
Yeah.
Nah, I trust this guy. He brought me wolf meat.
Yeah. He's a trustworthy fellow. We've got so we've got the games next up. Keep an eye out for Parasite Eve, which is probably going to be a bit of a difficult one for people to play along with us.
You're going to have to emulate it, kids.
But it's worth a look because it's a really interesting game. Do you want to give them like the back of the box?
I mean, if you're a US listener, then you will have had way more access to this than we have here in Europe because the game never came out in Europe. It never came out in the UK. The sequel did, and it's widely available on eBay. But the original, I've managed to get hold of it by creating an American PSN account and buying it on the PlayStation 3. To get the sort of PS1 classic release digitally there. But David has had to emulate it, of course, because fuck that effort. So effectively, the best way to describe this game is sort of Resident Evil meets Chrono Trigger. It's developed by Square, not Square Enix, because they weren't a thing back then. It's actually Square Electronic Arts, which is bizarre. And you play a woman in very similar sort of visually to Resident Evil, where you've got pre-rendered backgrounds. But instead of being sort of an action horror game, it is a horror RPG game where you will enter random battles. You will basically do turn-based combat. You will level up your character, upgrade your weapons and armor, and it's very story-heavy. There's a lot of narrative going on in the game as well. It's not scary in any way, but it's a horror game still. It's probably not scary because it's not 1997 anymore. Maybe, I don't know.
No, I'm quite enjoying the story so far. I've only played a couple hours of it.
The story is what's the word? It's kind of ambitious. I think it's kind of really involved in science for a game that old. There's a lot of like exposition to read, and there's a lot of stuff to kind of understand to do with DNA and things like that have caused what's going on in the game. So. But it's also filled with loads of horrific monsters to take down. So, never really played a game like it. I've never played a horror RPG, and I'm enjoying it for that fact that it's a turn-based game that gives you some sort of action element to it. We'll get more into it, obviously, on the podcast. But I was worried this game was going to be shit and would not have held up in any way, and that we weren't going to finish it. But I've actually really enjoyed my time with it.
Yeah, I know, I'm too. I'm looking forward to playing it later on today.
So that's first up.
And I guess with that brings us to the end. Yeah, that's first up. That brings us to the end of episode 22, 23. Was it? Did you say? 23, I was close. I was closer than the last time when I guessed episode 12. My God, time goes into a blur. If you want to chat to us and find out what we're up to, I keep meaning to make more use of the Twitter account, so keep your eyes on just a bit more chat coming out of us, which is at awinnerisyoupod. You can also send us an email, awinnerisyoupod@gmail.com, I think. And check out Goomba Stomp, who are good enough to host us and slap us on their website. That's goombastomp.com. Shout out to those guys. They've also got other podcasts that aren't as good as us that you can have a listen to. And please, if you want, please leave us a review on iTunes, because that really does help, and that really does help bump us up the list so that more people will discover and listen to us. And I think that's it. I think I've covered all the bases there. With Alex's nice flick of his glasses.
YouTube watchers. See you later. Thanks for watching. Subscribe.
I have been David. He has been Alex. We have been the Resurrected or Winners You podcast at gmail.com.
Keep gaming.
I'm out.
Bye.